Hi there. Thank you guys for joining me for a quick Trajecsys tutorial. I'll try and go through this pretty quickly because you're all so bright and I know this is a relatively easy system for you to utilize, but I don't want you to get afraid of the system. You can see from this side over here that we have a lot of different options of things that you can do in Trajecsys. Most of the time, you're really going to be working from your clock in here. Occasionally, a time exception here. If you miss a clock in or a clock out, you can put exceptions in for that. You're going to be adding daily logs in here. Now, if you want to see where you're at with your time, with your logs, with your evaluations, anything like that, you can go to reports and find all of those there. When you need to enter in a competency or look up a competency, because actually you guys aren't allowed to enter in your own competencies, those will be entered in by a technologist that is registered with the Trajecsys system. But if you want to pull up a competency and look at that comp specifically, then you can go here to the comp evals. You can send an email, although this really just connects to our general email. It would redirect to my Gmail, so you can always email me through that. You can add comments, and then you are going to be doing some evaluations, which you'll find here, and then you can log in and out, of course, right there. So when you log into your Trajecsys account, you'll go to www.trajecsys, spelled just like you see up here in the top left corner, .com. When you log in, this is the screen that will pop up for you. And so you can see here that first thing you're going to want to do is you have to utilize a computer at your clinical site. And you're going to, a technologist may have to log into the computer itself, but once you're on that computer, you can log into Trajecsys, and this will come up on your screen. You're going to use the username and password, of course, that you registered with, and you should be ready to go. So as soon as you get into the clinical site, you can clock in, and you would just want to select the site that you are at. So say if you were at Renown, you would select Renown. If you're at HDI, so on and so forth. And all you do is hit clock in, and it will register that time to that IP address. And so we know exactly where you're at when you're there. Now, at the end of the day, you will want to clock out. Once you have clocked in, the next time you register, or pardon me, the next time you log on, you'll be able to then clock out, and this will simply just appear as clock out with the blue button, and you'll just hit that button. Now, when you're doing your time, make sure that you are working, if you're working a 10-hour day, you're actually putting in 10 and a half hours because lunches do not count towards clinical time. You do not have to clock in and out at lunch. What we do is you clock in for the full, say, 10 and a half hours. At the end of the semester, I would look and evaluate how many days you were on clinical site, apply half an hour for each day you were on clinical site, and then subtract that value from your total clinical hours that semester. So make sure we have to deduct those hours anyway, so make sure that you're getting your 30 minutes lunch. Make sure that you're keeping it to 30 minutes, and that's how we keep our clock-ins and our time most accurate. The next area you're going to spend a significant amount of time in is this daily log sheet. Now, you'll see the daily log sheet here has a date listed. Now, if you were to be putting your daily logs in every single day, then this would automatically populate with, of course, the correct date. If, say, you got really busy, went a couple days, haven't entered logs, you can always backdate it here, and it will show me the day that you did enter the logs on and the day that the exam was actually done. Now, this daily log sheet is for you to enter every single exam that you're involved with. So if you've observed, if you've completed the exam, if you've done a partial scan, I'm going to show you how you enter those differently. But you want to make sure that when we're looking at your numbers that we have every single exam here. In your class, you will have basically just a table printout where you can handwrite your log sheets and then enter them at the end of the day if that works better for you. You could even enter them at the end of the week, but I don't like you to go over a week because what we find is students then end up not forgetting to do it or not getting all of them in. And this is one of the things our accreditors really look at in evaluation for your numbers, and we look at too to make sure that all of our clinical sites are getting pretty equal opportunities. So if you have a very low numbers because you're not entering log sheets, I might have to look at that and say, gosh, I need to change your clinical site because you're not doing enough exams. So again, make sure that these are updated at least weekly. Now, when you're filling these out, you can see Over here, there's going to be a space for supervising employee, just because this is just a made up test student from the Trajecsys uh, company. They put Matt Damon in here. So if you're not lucky enough to work with Matt Damon, you're going to have to enter whoever you're going to be working with. Now, quick note on this. You'll see that there's under or over here in the blue, there are some links you can click on. When you first get to clinicals, there's not going to be any employees listed in this box. So you're going to have to add by hitting new. You go to new, add in the employee. You just need their first and last name, and then you can add them to your logs. Now, quick note on this that has some confusion. If a sonographer has registered with the Trajecsys site, just like you guys registered, if they go to that home page, hit register, pick a password, pick a login, all of that, then they're technically in Trajecsys. That doesn't mean that they show up here in this box. Now, that's a little bit of a pain, but where it benefits us is if there's a technologist that doesn't necessarily have to register with Trajecsys, maybe they're not doing evaluations and they're not going to comp you, but they're observing you or letting you observe them, then you can just enter their name here and they can be your supervising employee. Okay, so just to recognize that those are two different things. Just because you have them on this list doesn't mean they're a Trajecsys member and that they can do all of the competencies. And just because they can do the competencies doesn't mean they're on the list. So those are things that we have to watch. The fortunate thing is you can put them in here. So you would add the technologist as new. And then in the key area, this is where you're going to want to enter a few letters that have to do with the exam you completed. So for instance, say you're doing an abdominal wall study, you'd enter ABD, abdomen. If you're doing a GYN study, you could enter GYN. Now, exactly a list of keys, I don't have that available, but because you do become more familiar with those as you go. It doesn't really matter as long as you enter something in this region. Once you've filled out your supervising tech and your key, then you can hit add to log. Once you've done that, you'll see this screen, and this is where you can select if it was a simulation. However, you're in clinical, so most of the time it is not going to be a simulation. So let's say you did an abdomen wall, you'd select abdomen, and then you could go to the next screen, and it would give you more specifics under that abdomen. Did you do a complete, a bladder, an aorta? Let's say we did the abdominal wall, you'd select that. And then you would select your level of participation. So you observed it, you partially completed it with assistance, completion with a lot of assistance, or independent completion. And then it's going to ask you how long it took. So just quickly, if it took you about a half hour, 30 minutes, you'd select. If it took you 10 minutes, you'd select 10. It doesn't have to be exactly precise, just an estimate here. And then you can put comments here. You are going to have a location a little bit farther ahead to put findings, so you could just click through this one if you like. And then here's where it's going to ask you for your comments, or excuse me, your exam findings. Now this again, this is a requirement of our accreditors, so please take this seriously and try and get that information in there. If it was a negative exam, you can just state negative. All right, so then once you enter that and it saves, it shows up here on your log sheet. Okay. Obviously, this log sheet is going to get much longer over time, and you'll have access to look at that anytime. Take the eyeball that you see here always means it can open up that particular form. This pen and paper always means you can edit it. If you entered something twice, delete it. All right, now this brings back, I mentioned time exceptions. So you can see over here, it's kind of grayed out, but let's say I went back to my home page and I said I wanted to change my time. I accidentally logged in and out just minutes apart. So if I wanted to put in a time exception, I would click on that time exception and this box would come up. And again, I want to make sure I'm at the correct site. I want to give a reason why I missed my clock in or clocked in incorrectly. Put the date, put the time, whether it's a clock in or a clock out, and then you're going to submit this. So here's an example of one I went ahead and filled out. This one, it looks like I forgot to clock in. And so I put my clock in at 8 a.m., submitted this, and it would have sent me an email, your clinical instructor an email, and then it would have corrected the clock in on your end. Okay. The next thing that we're going to go to is our reports. So once you click on reports from your home screen, you see this um, list of reports that you can assess or access, and then you can print these. And actually, as you get to this point next year and you're graduating the program, I do suggest that you download and save all of these. So if you ever have an employer or something wanting to know, how many abdomen exams you've done, you can provide that information for them. So first list on my report sheet would be your time totals. You can print that as just a PDF or an Excel version. Let's say we selected our time totals, and you can see here what this looks like. And this is exactly the time totals that I can see for you as well. So you see that you have the date, you have the site that you were at, you have the time that you were in, and then you'd have your time out. And then if you had to have put an exception in for this, that exception will come up right here in this column. I don't like to see exceptions much more than maybe 5% of the time. We all have accidents or miss things or distractions, and that's okay. Don't get too worried about it if you have some, but if I'm seeing them like 30% of the time, there's probably something else going on that we'd have to talk about. Next here you see your IP name and location, and this is how I know if you're clocking in at the clinical site. We have had students in the past that will park 10 minutes away, clock in as they walk, and actually they're 10 minutes late for clinical, and yet they look like they're on time. That's one of the main reasons that our accreditors really push for us to watch these IP addresses and make sure that our students are holding themselves to the highest standards. I really don't have any concerns with any of you, but what we find is if you just take the ability away, you also take the temptation away. So that's one of the things we do watch. Then here, approved by. Now, once you've completed clinical time, your clinical instructors typically go in and approve your time. Sometimes they leave that to me, but oftentimes they do it themselves. Just for your information, you see totals down here where it says the days worked, the total number of hours, such and such. If you have worked hours and they are appearing on this list, however, your clinical instructor has not approved it yet, those hours will not be included into your totals until they are approved. Okay? And you can see over here in this far column, that's where it's saying approved would be A, unapproved would be U. So this is also where I go in the end of the semester to determine how many hours you have. I go in here, I look at your total days and your total time worked. For this case, I see that there's 6 total days worked, so I'd multiply 6 by 0.5 for a half hour lunch. That would give me 3 hours of lunch, and then I would subtract that 3 hours of lunch from your total time. Okay, now let's say that we went back and we selected the next item on the report list. That next item was a skills log. This is what a skills log looks up when we pull it up. So this is actually your competency log. Everything on here is going to be a competency that you could complete. Now, this set of competencies is also listed in the back of your handbook with items marked as either mandatory, where you see an M here, or mandatory on our sheet in our handbook, or if it's not mandatory, it's just in this white area and does not have an M. Those would be considered electives. So when you comp something, you can see that this student has not comped very much, because when I look into this comped column, I can see they've comped an abdominal wall 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and they had comped this adnexa 1 time, but they didn't comp anything else. And so this is kind of a good little overview where you can look, and at the end of every semester, I'm going to go in and I'm going to count up the mandatory comps that you completed that particular semester, and I can go in and I can track the elective comps you completed that particular semester. The way I know it was completed that particular semester is because of the date on the comp here. If you try to comp something and fail, it's not a big deal. You can have your clinical instructor put that in, and it will appear like this lighter colored comp here. that would have been a failed comp. That's fine. There's no problems with that. I'd rather have you try and fail than not try at all. So please let me know if you have any questions on that. Now, your clinical instructors are required to put your comps in. So they would have to do that by being registered with Trajecsys and then entering the comps themselves. Now, if I went back to the home page again and I were to go back to reports and I then selected on my reports daily log sheets, I could pull up all of my daily log sheets. Maybe I want to see how many I've done in a particular semester. You can sort them by semester. You could sort them by your participation level, so on and so forth. You can also download those as Excel, PDF, etc. And then you'd be able to, really see where you're at with your log sheets, what you need to maybe spend a little bit more time on, where you're good at. So that's how you see your log sheets. After log sheets, on our report option is evaluation summaries. So if I were to go to reports, select evaluation summaries, this is where all the evaluations completed by you or completed on you would appear. So you are able to select the template here. Now there's going to be some evaluations that you complete. At every semester, you're going to fill out a clinical site orientation in your first couple of days of clinical. So make sure you're going to be doing that here in this upcoming semester. And then at the end of every semester, you are actually going to be evaluating your clinical site and your clinical instructor. So these are ones you're going to fill out. So if I were to select one of these, it would show you the the evaluations that you filled out. Now, I do like to have you at least once a semester complete an ergonomics evaluation, because what's out of sight is out of mind. And it's good practice to continually think about your ergonomics. So usually at midterm and at final, I like you to sit down, fill out an ergonomics evaluation, and kind of score yourself on how you're doing. That doesn't contribute to a grade other than it's done or it's not done, but it's trying to keep this at the forefront of your mind. Okay. And then finally, there's the student clinical evaluation. This is the one that's going to be completed by your clinical instructor or the tech that you're working with the most, and it's going to assess your clinical performance, and this will contribute to your grade. So if you wanted to see if your clinical instructor had done your evaluation, or you wanted to see their data or their comments regarding your evaluation, this is where you would go to do that. So here we selected student clinical evaluation. So this is where the technologist evaluated you, and you could group them in a number of different ways, but you can show the report, download it, or whatever you so choose. Okay, now comp evals, if you were to have comped something and you wanted to enter that into here, it doesn't come up as a comp on my end. It comes up as a comp only when your clinical instructor or your supervising technologist comps you on something. But if you wanted to enter that, hey, I've done my gynecology, complete female pelvis, I want to enter it into the system that I've done that, you can do this here under comp evaluations. This is also where you, pardon me, I think I misspoke on that one. That's where you would look up the evaluation, the comp that you did. So say you asked Bridget to enter a comp for your GYN and you wanted to see if she did it, and you want to see if she gave you, appropriate grades for everything, and she's off today. So you can go in and you can look at her comp that she put in on you right here. All right, and then other evaluations. If you go down, now we're out of the reports, we're out of the comp evals. Like I said, you can send email, you can add comments, but really the next thing you're going to go to is those evaluations. And these are the evaluations that you put in. So here's your clinical site and instructor evaluation. You just click on that, fill it out when it comes up in your course module telling you to do that, or watch your syllabus. It's in there as well. You would have your clinical site orientation. You're going to want to do this probably within the first 2 days of every clinical site rotation. And then your COVID precautions agreement, which is important to take a look at that. Just basically saying, yes, I know what COVID precautions I need, and yes, I'm willing to follow them. Now, that pretty much wraps it up for Trajecsys. I'm going to be making a very similar video for your clinical instructors. So if you or any of them ever have an issue, please have them reach out to me at any time, or you can reach out to me. But really, you guys are computer whizzes, so I know you'll be better at this than I am in no time. So thank you so much for sitting with me, and I'll good luck at clinicals.